Welcome, traveler of time. Drift with me now, through the folds of sleep and memory, where the wind slows and the firelight fades. Let your breath soften, your limbs grow heavy, and your mind slip gently into the rhythm of another world. There is no need to rush, nothing to do but listen and rest. Let the past unfold around you like a warm, woolen cloak. It is the middle of the 9th century, in the northern reaches of what will one day be called Scandinavia. The wind whispers down from the hills, cool and sharp, with the scent of pine and snowmelt. Smoke rises in steady ribbons from turf-roofed halls, each breath of it rich with the smell of peat fires and roasting barley. Outside, the trees sigh and sway, their branches creaking like old wood beneath the weight of another season. Somewhere nearby, a raven calls once, then falls silent. The village is still at this hour, blanketed by the hush of early morning. All except for one place, where the low clang of metal on metal carries softly through the mist. It is not jarring, not loud. It is steady, like the heartbeat of the land. The forge, tucked at the edge of the village where the hill curves down toward the stream, is already awake. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of iron, ash, and oil. The coals are beginning to glow, kissed into life by your breath and the gentle rhythm of the bellows. You feel the leather strap worn smooth beneath your fingers. The pull and push are familiar, soothing even. As the embers brighten, their light dances across the blackened beams above you and catches on the old iron tools hanging along the walls. Your hands are already darkened with soot, creases filled with the honest dust of your trade. You've done this for so long, the work moves through you like a quiet river. No need to think, no need to rush. You listen to the hiss of the fire, the soft crack of a new log, the bellows sigh, the forge breathes. So do you. Outside, the light is pale and silvery. The sky holds that color between frost and cloud, a color that speaks of long winters and early springs. The other villagers are still tucked beneath fur blankets or stirring porridge over hearths. But you are already here, as you are each day, greeting the world with fire. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to shape something so permanent, with hands so human? The blade on the anvil today is halfway done, a sayax, meant for a young hunter just old enough to leave with the men on their seasonal journey. His mother brought you salted fish and a small carved charm in payment, asking for a weapon strong and clean, with no bite of weakness inside it. You nodded, as you always do, and marked the iron accordingly. It is a good piece. The steel has taken the fold well, and the tang is balanced. You strike once more, and again, each blow slow and sure, sending a shiver through the iron as it begins to take its final form. You've seen much over the years. War bands passing through, foreign goods traded by men with strange tongues, winters too long, and crops too short. But always, the forge remains. The fire, the steel, the rhythm of creation. There is peace in the predictability of it, a comfort in the feel of metal, slowly yielding to your will. Some say you coax the shape from within it. Others whisper that you command it. But you know the truth. You listen, you wait. And when it is ready, you guide it. The sun is rising now, just enough to spill its pale light through the small opening in the wall above your workspace. You feel the warmth on your cheek as you wipe your brow with a cloth stiff from ash. The anvil is warm beneath your hand, like the back of an old ox. Familiar, dependable. A child peeks through the doorframe, eyes wide and curious. It's your nephew, small, too small yet to hold the tongs, but eager to see the sparks dance. You let him sit in the corner, far from the fire, where he plays with copper scraps and dreams of one day forging his own blade. You smile softly, though your face stays still. You do not speak often. Your work does the talking. Outside, someone is splitting wood, the sound of the axe rhythmically echoing through the trees. A rooster calls from a nearby yard. Life stirs, as it always does. You step back from the fire to sip from a horn of warm milk, slightly soured, but hearty. Your wife left it there before the sun crested the hills. She knows your mornings, the silence you prefer, the solitude of heat and steel. She does not disturb the forge. Few do. There is a rhythm to your days, the kind only fire and muscle can teach. And though the world outside your village shifts and churns, filled with tales of conquest and kings, your hands stay here, wrapped around the tongs, pressed to the haft of a hammer, dark, with the promise of things made and remade. The iron does not care who wears a crown. It only asks to be known, to be worked, to be given purpose. Do you remember the first time you shaped iron? How it felt to strike a glowing bar and see it yield, just slightly, beneath your will? That memory is still in your bones. It moves in your joints, sings in your tendons. Even now, with the weight of years upon your shoulders, you can feel the same quiet thrill each time the iron glows that deep golden red. Not orange, not white. That perfect, honeyed shade that means it is ready. A gust of wind curls through the gap beneath the door, scattering ash across the floor in tiny spirals. You do not mind. The floor is always dark here, always layered in the soot of seasons. It is soft underfoot in its own way. You return to the blade. It is ready for quenching. You lift it carefully, feel the heat radiate from its length, then slowly, reverently, guide it into the oil. The sizzle is sharp, but not loud. The smell is earthy, thick with memory. You hold it there, steady, patient. When it cools, the metal will be harder than before, stronger, but also more brittle. That is always the trade. Strength requires care, much like men. The day stretches ahead, but there is no rush. No bell to ring, no schedule to keep. Only the next piece, the next form, the next breath. The warmth of the forge lingers in the air like a soft embrace, clinging to your skin and clothing long after the flames have quieted. Outside, the morning has ripened. The sun now drifting lazily above the horizon, its pale rays brushing the tops of thatched rooftops and glinting faintly on the dew that still clings to the grass. You step outside for a moment, stretching your shoulders, letting your eyes rest on the slow rhythms of village life awakening. A dog trots past with something unidentifiable in its mouth. Chickens rustle through the straw, heads bobbing, busy with their own small concerns. From the main hall, a distant murmur of voices begins to rise. Women preparing meals, children laughing, an old man clearing his throat near the hearth. The village breathes as one living thing, and you, with soot-stained fingers and a heart tempered by years, are part of that breath. You wipe your hands on a cloth that was once linen but is now stiff with use. The scent of charcoal is always with you, embedded deep in your skin, in your hair, in the very fibers of your tunic. Some men wear perfume or oil to carry their wealth. You carry the scent of iron and fire, the smell of creation. A faint breeze curls through the trees behind the forge, stirring the leaves with a hushed rustle. You pause to listen. Not to anything in particular, only to be reminded that the world moves gently, even when we forget to notice. Have you ever listened not for a sound, but for the space between sounds? That quiet pause that holds the rhythm together, like the silence between hammer strokes, or the stillness before the iron sings again? You return inside, ducking your head beneath the low lintel. The blade you quenched rests on the rack now, cooling fully before you polish and sharpen its edge. Nearby, a set of iron nails awaits finishing. Beside them, a bent horseshoe in need of reshaping. No task is too small, no labor beneath you. Each piece matters. You take up the shoe. Its curve is familiar, a shape you've made 100 times before, perhaps more. The iron is cold now, but the fire waits patiently to give it life again. You place it gently into the coals and work the bellows with slow, measured pulls. The fire deepens in color, glowing from black to orange, then finally to the rich red you seek. The weight of the hammer fits naturally in your palm. You hold it not with power, but with purpose. Each strike a whisper to the metal, not a command. The anvil rings softly beneath it, echoing through the small space like a chant you've known since boyhood. The door creaks open again. This time, it's your neighbor, an older man with a crooked back and a walking stick smoothed by decades of use. He leans in the doorway, nodding without speaking. You nod back. He leaves behind a twisted hook that once held a cooking pot over his hearth. You set it aside. You'll see to it later. There is always something that needs mending. The day continues like a slow turning wheel. The tasks do not rush, nor do they end. You pause only once to eat, sitting on the low bench outside with a crust of bread, a slice of dried fish, and a horn of water chilled from the stream. The air is warmer now, but not hot. Clouds drift across the sky like sheep wandering a pasture. As you eat, your gaze lingers on the distant tree line. Beyond it lie hills you rarely visit, and farther still, places you've only heard of. Great halls of kings, seaborne raids on foreign shores, cities where iron is cast in molds instead of forged by hand. You've heard tales of such things, and yet you've never longed to go. What would it be like, do you think, to leave the village behind and walk into the unknown? You finish your meal and return to your work without answering. Perhaps some questions are not meant to be solved, but simply held for a time, like a coal in the palm, warming, glowing, then fading. The blade is ready now for polishing. You cradle it carefully and walk to the stone wheel, set near the doorway, where sunlight falls across its worn surface. You begin to turn the wheel with your foot, the rhythm slow and steady. The blade meets stone with a soft kiss, sending fine sparks into the air like fireflies in daylight. You guide it gently, letting the stone smooth away the scars left by fire and force. The edge emerges slowly, clean, strong, purposeful. The boy will come tomorrow for it. His mother will stand behind him, eyes filled with quiet pride. He will reach out, not quite believing he is old enough. And you will place it in his hands with care, reminding him, without words, that strength is nothing without balance, that a blade can protect or destroy, depending on the hands that wield it. You think often of such things, of the quiet power resting in the tools you make, not just swords or axes, but plows, nails, hinges, hooks, the things that bind a world together. Your fire begins to fade now. The last of the wood crumbles into a bed of glowing embers. The forge sighs, as if tired. You clean your tools one by one, wiping them down with rags soaked in oil. You place them in their places along the wall, each one where it belongs. You do not rush. This, too, is part of the ritual. A kind of silence you honor. Outside, the shadows stretch longer. The sun tilts toward the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of gold and silver. You stand in the doorway for a while, arms crossed, watching the light change. The air smells different now, cooler, tinged with the scent of wood smoke and pine sap. You breathe it in, and you rest. A crow stirs on the ridge beam of the forge roof, fluttering its wings once before settling again, silhouetted against the softening sky. Evening approaches without haste. The sounds of the village grow gentler, a lull after the day's labor. Children's voices drift from somewhere near the longhouse, but even their laughter seems to float slower now, as though wrapped in wool and shadow. You remain at the threshold, leaning against the doorframe, letting the air cool your skin. A breeze rustles the birch trees nearby, their white bark catching the last gleams of sun like polished bone. You hear the quiet clatter of wooden buckets being drawn up from the well, the slosh of water as it spills just slightly over the edge. Someone is humming, a woman's voice, old and low, weaving through the stillness like thread. The blade has been wrapped in cloth, laid gently upon the table beside the hearth. It will rest there through the night, safe and silent. Its work will come soon enough. For now, it sleeps, and so, too, will you. But not yet. You light the small lantern that hangs from the forge beam, its flame dancing in the still air. Not bright, just enough to soften the corners of the room. Shadows shift across the walls, long and languid, like memories stretching from some distant time. The warmth from the embers continues to hum against the stones beneath your feet. Have you ever watched a fire when it is nearly gone? When it no longer crackles or flares, but simply glows, breathing its last warmth into the space around it? You settle onto the low stool, your body eased by the rhythm of work, your mind soothed by the silence that follows it. A small piece of iron sits nearby, not yet anything. You pick it up, turning it over in your palm. Not every piece has a plan. Some simply wait until their shape becomes clear. You remember your father, once seated as you are now, the lines on his face drawn deep with ash and wisdom. He rarely spoke, but when he did, it was always by the forge, always with the smell of coal in the air. He taught you to wait, to feel the iron story before you tried to write your own into it. Some nights, you still feel his presence here, not in a ghostly way, but in the quiet habits you carry, the way you stack the kindling, the order in which you lay out the tools, the particular way you test a blade's balance with your thumb. His hands taught yours, and one day, your hands may teach another. The boy from the other day, the one with the copper eyes and scuffed knees, he watches you often, pretends to chase the dog or gather firewood, but you see how his gaze lingers when you strike the iron. You do not call him over. Not yet. He must come of his own will, not from curiosity, but from calling. In the back corner of the forge, near where the older tools hang, there is a chest of offcuts and odd pieces, blades broken in the quench, nails twisted from a poor cast, hinges that never quite sat straight. You keep them, not out of need, but out of respect. They are reminders that even steel can falter, that even skill cannot always outmatch chance. You turn the lantern slightly, its glow now touching the carved wood above your hearth. Runes etched long ago, still sharp in their pattern. Not for magic, not for fear, simply for memory. They mark the name of your father, your mother, and the season when this forge was first built. The year of the long winter. You were a child then, barely strong enough to carry a pail of water. But even then, you watched the fire. Night is nearing now. You can feel it in the way the wind has turned. There is a hush outside, the kind that comes just before the stars appear. You close the forge's small shutter and stoke the coals one last time, just enough to keep the heart of the fire alive through the dark. The stones will hold the warmth until morning. You pull your cloak from its peg, worn and lined with fur, and drape it over your shoulders. The smell of it brings a quiet comfort, smoke, pine, and wool. As you step outside once more, the village is nearly still. A few windows glow with hearthlight, but most are dark, the world folding gently inward. You walk slowly toward your home, boots pressing soft impressions into the earth. The stars are emerging above, distant and pale, scattered like silver dust across the sky. The moon is not yet risen. The air tastes of night. At your door, you pause and glance back once more toward the forge. The shape of it sits solid and silent beneath the sky, a part of you as much as your own hand. It will wait for you, as it always has. And now, you sleep. You let the weight of the day settle. Your limbs loosen. Your breath deepens. And in the stillness that follows the fire, you drift. A soft creak escapes the floorboards beneath your feet as you step into the dim warmth of your home. The hearth has been banked low, just enough to keep the room from cooling entirely. Shadows pool in the corners, and the scent of juniper branches, hung earlier to dry, lingers faintly in the air. Your wife is already asleep, curled beneath furs, with her back turned to the door, her breathing slow and steady. The low flicker of the fire throws gentle waves of amber across the walls, catching the curves of carved wooden panels and the braided cords that hang from pegs beside the bed. You move quietly, your footsteps silent from years of practice. The sounds of the forge may be loud to others, but your life has always been marked by silence, a silence filled with meaning, with labor, with care. You set your cloak aside and sit for a moment on the edge of the bed, your hands resting on your knees. Your palms are rough, warm from the work of the day. You can still feel the echo of the hammer in them, a low, pleasant hum that fades only when you sleep, and sleep will come soon. You lie back slowly, careful not to disturb the stillness of the room. The furs rise to your chest, their familiar weight a comfort against the deepening chill. Through the small window near the roof, the stars are visible, more now than before, and for a moment, you find yourself wondering how many times those same stars have watched this land. How many other hands have reached for a blade by firelight, or stood beneath the sky with soot on their skin and iron on their breath? Have you ever looked at the night sky and felt as though the world beneath it were just a passing thought? The wind picks up again outside. You hear it brush the side of the house, stirring the branches against the wooden walls like fingertips on linen. Somewhere, not far away, an owl calls, low and soft, its cry drifting like a thread through the sleeping village. You close your eyes, but your mind does not fall away completely. Not yet. You think of tomorrow. There will be more tools to finish. A hinge for the chieftain's gate, a new head for the axe of the man who hunts the forest line, perhaps a cooking hook for the widow whose pot no longer sits level above her fire. You do not choose the work. It finds you, like the slow and steady pull of the tide, and you are glad for it. The life of a blacksmith is not one of renown, not in the way the skalds sing of raiders or jarls, but it is a life of making, of mending, of shaping the unseen world in quiet, enduring ways. Long after a warrior's name is forgotten, his blade might still hang above his son's hearth. A door you made may creak for generations before the wood gives way. Nails driven by your hands will hold beams through storms and time. That is a kind of legacy, too, is it not? The fire cracks gently beside you, and you feel your muscles begin to loosen. The last thoughts of the day come softer now, quieter, like footsteps fading down a long earthen path. You follow them without fear. They lead you toward rest. And just before sleep takes you completely, you wonder again about the boy with the copper eyes. Will he come back? Not just to watch, but to learn. And if he does, will he have the patience to listen to the iron before he strikes? These thoughts drift into dreams as the fire burns low and the night deepens around you. In the forge, the last embers settle into silence. In your chest, your breath falls into the rhythm of sleep. Long, even, undisturbed. The stars continue to watch, but you no longer notice. You are part of the quiet now. In the early gray hush of morning, long before the sun lifts its golden weight above the trees, a thin thread of smoke rises once again from the chimney above the forge. The world is still cradled in half-darkness, that hour when the sky is neither night nor day, but something soft and in between. The kind of light that seems to muffle sound, where even the birds have not yet begun to sing. Inside the forge, the coals have been coaxed back to life, glowing deep in the heart of the fire pit like hidden gems. The bellows give a slow sigh, the leather groaning faintly as you work them with a practiced rhythm. The embers brighten in response, flaring just enough to reveal the outline of your shape. Shoulders broad, hands already darkened with ash, eyes still quiet with sleep. Your movements are slower this morning, but no less sure. The night was restful, the kind of sleep that sits heavy in the limbs and quiet in the chest. You rose before the others, as always, slipping from beneath the furs with barely a sound. There is something sacred in the first light, something you have always known but never spoken aloud. It is not a time for words, only for breath, for fire, for purpose. You add a fresh piece of oak to the coals, and the scent of it fills the space. Sweet, sharp, earthy. It mingles with the ever-present iron and oil, wrapping around you like a cloak. Outside, the frost still clings to the ground in pale lace, and the grasses crackle underfoot when stepped upon. But here, within these walls, the warmth is growing. Have you ever felt that moment, just before the day begins in earnest, when everything seems balanced on the edge of something unseen? On the bench, lies a broken ring brooch, its curve warped. The pin snapped. It was brought to you by the eldest woman in the village. Her fingers knotted with age, her eyes sharp as flint. She spoke little, but her gaze held meaning. The brooch had once belonged to her mother, she said, perhaps older still. You turn it over gently in your palm, studying the metal's memory. The bronze is pitted in places, but the engraving, the serpent curled in a single, endless loop, is still visible, still proud. You set to work with small tools this time. No hammering, no loud clatter. Only filing, fitting, soldering. Precision, not force. The brooch does not want to be remade, only restored. You listen to it. It tells you where the break began, how the pressure built over time. You answer with your hands, coaxing it back to itself. The hours pass in silence, broken only by the soft rasp of file on metal and the occasional hiss of water quenching hot iron. A bird begins to call from the tree outside, tentative at first, then certain. The village wakes slowly. You hear the first footsteps on packed earth, the creak of doors, the low murmur of greetings exchanged between neighbors. A young girl appears at the threshold of the forge, her braids damp from washing, her apron fresh with the scent of lye soap. She carries a basket of eggs and places it carefully on the work table. It is a trade, the brooch for breakfast. She doesn't ask if it's finished. She knows it will be. She smiles, and you nod once, the exchange as natural as breath. When she leaves, the silence returns, not empty, but full of peace. The sun finally pushes through the clouds, throwing angled beams across the floor. They catch the dust in the air, turning it into gold. You take a moment to sit on the low bench by the door, holding a piece of bread in one hand, the repaired brooch in the other. It gleams faintly in the light, not as it once did, but somehow more honest now. Worn, but whole. You wrap it in a scrap of cloth, careful with the corners, and set it aside for when the old woman returns. She will not thank you in words, but you will see it in her eyes. That, too, is enough. The rest of the day stretches ahead like a quiet path. The tools are ready, the iron waiting. You rise once more, brushing crumbs from your lap, and return to the coals. Have you noticed how a fire never truly stops burning, only shifts its shape? Your hands remember. The muscles move with a rhythm older than speech. You pick up the next task, a hinge, perhaps, or a blade to be sharpened. You do not need to look at the list. Your memory holds every request, every promise made, every item trusted to your care. Outside, the village continues its slow dance, weaving, baking, mending, carrying. The forge hums at its center, not loud, not proud, but steady. You are its keeper, its listener, its maker of small, enduring things. And as the heat rises once more, you feel it again, that quiet joy. A thin wisp of steam curls up from the cup of broth in your hand. It is midday now, and the light filtering through the open window is warm upon the stone floor. You sit just beyond the forge, in the small space where the earth is worn smooth by footsteps, and the bench knows the weight of your body as if it were carved to match. The bowl is simple, carved wood, darkened from years of use, and the broth within is rich with roots and bones simmered down since morning. Each sip is slow, grounding. It hums in your chest, easing the ache in your shoulders, the stiffness in your hands. From the corner of your eye, you see movement. A boy chasing a goat, barefoot, his laughter trailing behind him in ribbons. A woman scolds softly from a doorway, shaking a ladle, though her voice holds more fondness than frustration. Behind her, a pot swings gently over the hearth fire, steam rising to greet the rafters. The smell of onions and barley drifts on the air, mingling with the scent of your lunch. The forge door stands open, the breeze passing through in gentle breaths. It lifts the edge of the cloth, draped over the table, rustles the row of tongs hung neatly on their pegs. You have always kept your tools in careful order, not out of pride, but out of respect. Each one has earned its place, some made by your own hand, others inherited, their handles worn smooth by those who came before. Have you ever held something made before you were born and felt it still alive beneath your fingers? The handle of your hammer, for instance, the way it fits into your palm, the way it seems to guide your grip rather than obey it. It was your father's, and perhaps his father's before him. You've never replaced it. The head has been reforged, the weight adjusted over time, but the wood remains. Not because it is perfect, but because it remembers. You rise from the bench and stretch slowly, your knees answering with soft clicks. The bowl is set aside on a flat stone, where the sun will dry it by evening. You wipe your hands on your apron and re-enter the forge. The air is warm again, heavy with the scent of smoldering coal and cooling metal. You welcome it. It is the scent of continuity. On the work table lies your next task, a new blade, longer than most, meant not for war or hunting, but for harvesting. A scythe, its curve yet unformed, the tang raw and waiting. The farmer who requested it spoke of a new field he'd cleared with his sons, a patch of wild earth now ready for barley. He had brought you a small sack of apples in trade, still green and tart, their skins dappled from the shade of the orchard. You run your fingers along the bar of iron, measuring its weight, its length, the way it breathes in the warmth of the forge. Then, gently, you carry it to the fire. The bellows move in your rhythm. A slow pull, a soft exhale. The flame responds like a living thing, its color shifting from orange to deep gold, then into that quiet red, the color that tells you the metal is listening. You hold the bar with your tongs, guiding it into the coals, and wait. Not idly, never idly. You are listening too. Have you ever noticed how silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of attention? The bar glows. You lift it from the flame and lay it across the anvil. The first strike is not hard, just enough to wake the shape within. You watch the iron closely, feeling its resistance, its readiness. The curve begins to form. The edge narrows. The blade becomes. This is not the work of an instant. It takes time, patience. The fire must be stoked again and again, the blade reheated, reheard. You pause between strikes to adjust, to breathe, to tilt the metal just so. Sweat gathers at your brow, but the labor is welcome. This, you understand. This, you can trust. The sun continues its slow climb across the sky. Shadows shift inside the forge, stretching long across the floor, then drawing back again as if to watch from a new angle. Outside, the village continues. Goats bleating, children running, wheels creaking against earth. But here, time is different. Time moves in the breath of the fire, the rise and fall of the hammer, the hush between steps. By late afternoon, the blade is nearly finished. Its curve is true, its balance even. You run a finger along its spine, careful not to touch the edge. It gleams, faintly, beneath the soot. You place it gently on the rack to cool and reach for a cloth to wipe your brow. Your hand finds the apple, still sitting where you left it, green and cool, firm beneath your thumb. You bite into it slowly. The juice is sharp, clean. It brings you back to yourself. The work is not done. It never truly is. But the fire is quiet for now. The iron rests. And so do you. The light of late day settles like honey across the village, thick and golden, clinging to the rough-hewn beams of the forge and glinting off the specks of iron dust that hang in the air. The warmth of the sun filters through the open door, brushing your shoulders as you move with the slow grace of a man whose muscles know every tool, every corner of the room. Shadows stretch long across the earthen floor. You don't step around them. You walk through them, as you always have. The scythe blade, now cooled, lies quiet on the bench. You turn it in your hands, inspecting each curve and edge with the same care you'd give to a cup passed from an elder, not hurried, not distracted. There is still work to be done. The handle must be fitted. But not today. Let the blade rest in its own silence for a while. Some tools, like some truths, need a moment before they speak again. Outside, the air is softer than it was this morning. A warm breeze moves through the trees beyond the forge, carrying the scent of distant pine and crushed grass. You lean against the doorway, the wood familiar beneath your back, and you watch as a pair of sparrows chase one another through the thatch of a neighbor's roof. A small moment, unnoticed by most, but not by you. Have you ever stood still long enough to hear the world breathe? A man approaches from the far end of the path, older, broad across the shoulders, but his gait is slower now. He carries something wrapped in cloth, held carefully in both hands. As he draws near, you recognize him, the cooper, whose barrels keep the village's grain safe through winter. His face is lined, his beard silvered at the chin, and he smells faintly of oak and beeswax. He offers you the bundle without speaking. You open it slowly, the cloth revealing a small draw knife, the blade rusted, its handles worn unevenly. A tool long used and now tired. You nod. He nods. That is enough. You'll see to it in the morning. He lingers for a moment before turning back, and as he walks away, you see the faint limp in his left leg, a souvenir from a fall during the thaw last spring. He never complained, simply adjusted. You admire that. The forge is quiet now. The fire rests under ash, still warm, but no longer bright. You draw a leather apron from your neck and fold it with care, placing it on the hook beside your father's old coat. The wall there is dark from years of smoke, the grain of the wood etched with heat and time. You run your fingers over it once, a habit, a blessing. You step outside, blinking slightly against the low sun. The sky is the color of old copper, burnished and deep. Children run through the fields, chasing each other with sticks for swords, while their mothers call them home with songs only half meant to scold. Somewhere behind the houses, a sheep bleats, persistent and nasal, as though complaining about supper. You smile, just a little. Your path takes you toward the stream at the edge of the village. The water is clear and cold, tumbling over round stones and clumps of moss. You crouch at its bank, cupping your hands to gather a drink. The chill of it is sharp against your fingers, but welcome. You splash your face once, the droplets dripping down into your beard. The sound of the stream soothes something in you, something older than words. You stay there for a while, just listening. When you stand again, the sun has begun to slip behind the distant hills, its last light curling through the tops of the trees like smoke. The shadows deepen, the village grows quiet. You make your way home, the dust soft beneath your feet, the sky darkening with the promise of stars. At your door, you pause. The wood is cool beneath your palm. You listen one last time to the evening. The crackle of a cooking fire, the clatter of a pot being washed, the low murmur of two voices sharing the end of their day. And above it all, the sky, so vast, so silent. You step inside, into the warmth of your home, the smell of lentils and thyme still lingering from supper. A candle burns low on the table, and your wife hums quietly as she combs her hair by the hearth. She doesn't turn. She doesn't need to. She knows your steps, knows the rhythm of your breath. She hums for you because you are here. You sit near the fire and remove your boots, your feet grateful for the cool air. Your body sinks into the wooden chair, as though it remembers every curve of it, every sigh. Outside, the stars begin to bloom. The day is done, and tomorrow, the fire will rise again. The night wraps around the village like a woolen shroud, soft, thick, and full of breath. The stars, now fully risen, glimmer faintly above the thatched rooftops, scattered across the dark sky like the dusting of ash that settles after a long day's fire. The moon has begun its slow climb, round and pale, peering gently over the tops of the trees. Its light spills across the earth in muted silver, revealing the contours of the familiar: fences, stones, the outline of the forge now asleep. Inside your home, the candle flickers low. Its flame bends slightly with every shift in the air, dancing in slow rhythm to the settling of the house. The creak of beams, the sigh of cooling stones, the faint hush of wool as your wife lies down beside you. You sit a while longer, elbows resting on your knees, fingers laced together. The silence is full, not empty, not lonely. It is the kind of silence that has known laughter, work, grief, and patience. It holds you just as the forge does, just as the land does. On the shelf above the hearth, small tokens sit undisturbed. A bit of driftwood brought back from the coast by a traveling cousin. A carved wooden horse, its paint long faded. A length of twine once used to bind the handles of a wedding gift. These things are not valuable in silver or coin, but they are heavy with memory. They mark your life in ways no tally ever could. Have you ever measured a life not in days, but in the objects you've kept close, in the hands that passed them to you? You rise quietly, careful not to wake the stillness, and blow out the candle. Darkness settles gently into the space where the light had been, and for a moment, the room feels even more peaceful, as if the shadows themselves had exhaled. You move toward the bed, the floor cool beneath your bare feet, and slip beneath the furs. The warmth is immediate. Your wife shifts slightly beside you, but does not wake. Her breathing is even, her hair braided loosely down her back, carrying the faint scent of juniper and smoke. You turn toward the wall, your eyes slowly adjusting to the low light seeping through the window above. The night stretches out before you like a wide river, calm and endless. As sleep approaches, your thoughts begin to soften at the edges, no longer sharp, no longer fixed. You think, faintly, of the blade that waits in the forge, its curve still untested in the fields, of the boy who watched you yesterday, and the way his fingers brushed the doorframe before he turned and ran. You think of the iron in your veins, not of blood, but of calling. The steady pulse of it, shaped by fire, guided by will. And you wonder, softly, wordlessly, how many generations before you lit the forge in the same place? How many more will come after? The wind outside has stilled. The stars shine on. The world turns, slow and unseen. And within it, you sleep. Your breath slows. Your body settles into the familiar weight of rest. And as the last thoughts fade, like embers falling into ash, the forge waits. The fire rests, and the village sleeps. A pale mist clings to the earth as dawn begins to stir once more. It drapes itself over the fields and curls low along the footpaths, softening the edges of the world. The sky is only just beginning to change. A faint silver glow behind the hills, barely enough to light the thatched roofs or the still water of the village stream. The quiet is deep, unbroken, save for the occasional whisper of wind slipping through the grass like a secret. Your eyes open slowly to the dimness of the room, still half dreaming, still wrapped in the warmth of the furs. The air is cool on your skin, carrying the scent of earth and smoke and something faintly sweet, perhaps the last of the dried herbs hung by the hearth weeks ago. You lie still for a moment, listening. Your wife's breath moves softly beside you. Outside, a crow calls once, then silence again. You rise without speaking, your movements practiced and calm. The wooden floor is cool beneath your feet. You gather your tunic, worn soft with years of wear, and pull it over your head. The morning is not hurried. The day will wait for you. You step outside into the mist. The village is hushed, cloaked in the stillness that only early light can bring. Smoke has not yet risen from the chimneys. No doors creak open. No voices call. It is the hour of watchers, of those who rise before sound returns to the world. You are among them. The path to the forge crunches faintly beneath your boots. Frost kissed the ground in the night, and its touch lingers. As you near, the shape of the forge emerges from the mist, squat and familiar, like an old friend waiting in the dark. The door groans gently as you open it, and the scent of iron and ash greets you, like memory. Inside, everything is as you left it. You move without needing to see. Your hand finds the flint, the tinder, the kindling stacked near the hearth. You coax the fire to life with slow, deliberate care, watching as the first orange sparks flutter and catch. The coals glow faintly, then brighter, as breath and time feed them. You press the bellows once, then again, and the forge begins to wake. Have you ever felt how a place can remember your hands, your footsteps, your silences? As the warmth returns, you gather your tools from their pegs, hammer, tongs, oilstone, each one a continuation of the work, not separate from it. You unwrap the scythe blade from its resting place and run a cloth along its spine, checking for flaws that the night might have revealed. But it is sound, ready. You step outside briefly, moving to where a bundle of ashwood poles leans against the forge wall. The wood is straight, pale, and smooth. Chosen weeks ago, allowed to season in the shade. You test a few in your hands, pressing the curve gently against your palm, feeling for balance, forgive. One of them speaks to you. In that quiet way, materials do when they're ready to become more than themselves. Back inside, you measure the length, then begin the work of shaping the haft. This labor is quieter than forging. Less fire, more breath. The draw knife, newly repaired, glides in long ribbons along the pole, each pass revealing the grain beneath, each curl of wood falling to the floor like forgotten thoughts. You follow the shape the wood offers. You do not impose your will. You suggest, you guide, and slowly, the scythe handle begins to take its true form. The sun lifts higher as you work. Light filters through the small window above the forge, catching the fine dust in the air, turning it to gold. Outside, the village stirs. You hear the first clatter of a pail against stone, the soft whinny of a horse, the rustle of straw. Voices begin to rise, low and sleepy still, but awake. And yet, within the forge, time remains slow. The blade and the haft wait to be joined, and you pause, wiping your brow with a cloth worn thin at the edges. You walk to the door and lean against the frame, letting the sunlight touch your face. The mist has begun to lift. The hills beyond the village are visible now, their soft green shadows stretching toward the sea. You see a hawk circling above the trees, gliding without hurry, without need. You take another breath. The fire hums behind you. The scythe waits, and the day, quiet and long, lies ahead. The scythe is finished by late morning. The blade and the ashwood haft have found one another, joined not by force, but by a shared purpose. You hold it lightly in both hands, testing its weight, the feel of its curve, the way it moves when drawn slowly through the air. It glides, as it should, not with haste, but with balance, with promise. You run your thumb across the neck, where wood meets steel, where your work meets the work of the earth. It is smooth, whole. You place it gently on the rack, where it will wait until the farmer arrives. His hands will finish the story. Yours have given it form. You take a moment to sit near the forge, where the warmth has settled into a steady, even heat. The fire needs little tending now. It breathes on its own, watched over by stones and ash, by time and care. Your hands rest on your knees, palms up, fingers darkened by the day's labor. You do not mind the soot. It is not dirt to be scrubbed away. It is a record of your hours, a quiet badge of the unseen. The sounds of the village are fuller now. Children laugh in the distance, chasing each other between houses. A woman calls out greetings to a passing neighbor. A hammer rings from the far end of the path. Not yours this time, but that of the cooper, shaping staves for a new barrel. The rhythm is different than your own, but familiar in its steadiness. Have you ever sat among these sounds and realized they are not noise, but a song? One composed slowly, over years, by the lives of those who remain? You rise, stretching the stiffness from your back, and begin to clean your tools. Each one is wiped with care, the iron oiled, the handles checked for wear. The tongs go first, then the hammer, then the draw knife, its edge newly restored. You return them to their pegs in silence. Your motions part of a ritual you never had to learn. It was simply given to you by the work itself. Outside, a soft knock at the doorframe draws your attention. The farmer stands there, cap in hand, a shy smile on his face. His clothes are dusted with straw, his boots worn at the heel. Behind him, his eldest son lingers, not quite tall enough yet to carry the full burden of harvest, but tall enough to watch and remember. You nod and gesture toward the scythe. The man steps forward, lifting it in both hands, turning it carefully, testing the weight. He says little, just a murmur of thanks and a small bow of his head. But you see it in his eyes, the quiet relief of readiness. The season has come, and the fields will not wait. This tool will serve him well. As he leaves, the boy glances back at you. Just for a moment. His eyes linger on the forge, on the rack of tools, on the worn apron hanging beside the door. Then he turns to follow his father down the path, the scythe balanced carefully on the farmer's shoulder. You watch them go until they vanish behind the curve of the hill. Then you turn back inside. The fire is low now. You let it be. The light from the window is softer, the shadows stretching again across the stone. You set your stool near the doorway and take a seat, letting the warmth of the forge and the breath of the wind meet at your back. You take out a small carving, a piece of bone smoothed by hand, nothing special. A figure, maybe, or the beginnings of one. You aren't sure yet. Your knife moves slowly over its surface, peeling away slivers as fine as paper. This is not work. This is the space between work, the quiet moment where the mind wanders but the hands remain steady. The fire cracks softly behind you. The village hums. The wind stirs the grass. And the day goes on, as it always has, shaped not by moments of greatness, but by hands that make, mend, and wait. The afternoon deepens with a golden quiet, the kind that settles into the corners of a room and hangs in the air like warmth left behind by someone who just stepped out. Outside, the sun leans lower in the sky, casting long beams through the forge's narrow window. Dust motes drift lazily through the light, turning the stillness into something almost sacred. Your knife glides once more across the bone, carving a shallow curve just beneath what might become the shoulder of a figure. You aren't yet sure who or what it is becoming. Perhaps a hunter, or a farmer, or a goddess of the hearth. But you don't need to know. The shape will reveal itself in time, just as the scythe did, and the blade before it. You work slowly, letting the rhythm soothe your thoughts. There is no finish line, only the next stroke, and the one after that. The forge behind you hums with the soft presence of cooling iron and the memory of flame. It no longer glows, but it breathes, as if it too were resting, content with the day's work. The tools are clean, the benches orderly. The last scraps of wood have been gathered near the hearth, stacked in neat bundles for the next morning. Outside the open door, the village is quieter now. The bustle of midday has passed. You hear the soft thunk of a spade in earth, the swish of a broom against stone, the distant clink of pottery being rinsed in a wooden basin. These are the sounds of tending, not of labor or toil, but of care. Have you ever listened to a place that knows how to take care of itself? A shadow crosses the threshold, and a young girl appears at the edge of the forge. She lingers there a moment, unsure. You look up from your carving and offer a small nod. Her feet are bare, her hands folded in front of her, holding a single broken spoon. The handle has split where the wood meets the curve of the bowl. She steps forward without a word and places it on the table. You pick it up gently. The grain is soft, worn smooth by use, the crack clean and repairable. You say nothing, only gesture for her to wait. From a shelf near the back, you take down a pot of resin and a sliver of fresh birch. The mending takes little time. A narrow wedge, a bit of heat, a press of the clamp. You work with care, not because the spoon is rare or beautiful, but because it was held in someone's hand, perhaps every day. When you return it to her, she smiles, not with her mouth, but with her eyes. Then she turns and vanishes down the path, disappearing like smoke into the fading light. You set the resin aside. Outside, the sun has dipped low enough to brush the tops of the trees with amber, casting their shadows long across the field. A man walks past leading a horse, its hooves muffled on the path. Behind him, a pair of boys trail behind, with arms full of kindling. The elder calls to them, his voice soft, carried by the wind. The bone carving lies in your lap, half-shaped, half still waiting. You place it on the shelf beside the hearth and rise, your limbs stiff but steady. You walk once more to the doorway and lean against the frame, your eyes drifting across the village. The light is changing again. The sky above is a soft blend of copper and lavender, the edges of the clouds lined with gold. You feel the shift in your chest, the way evening pulls gently at the heart, inviting stillness, asking the hands to rest. The air smells different now, cooler, like river stone and pine. You breathe it in deeply, then let it go. Have you ever stood still enough to feel the weight of the day leaving you? You step back inside and begin to close the forge for the night. The coals are tucked under ash. The tools are covered with cloth. The shutters are drawn, and the door is latched with a sound that clicks into place like a closing prayer. You make your way home through the quiet path, the light dimming with every step. The earth is cool beneath your feet. The stars have not yet come, but you know they are waiting, just beyond the hills, behind the veil of dusk. When you reach your door, you pause again. Not because you are tired, but because you know the day has ended well. You press your palm to the wood, feeling its grain, then step inside. And once again, the village sleeps. The house is dim and calm, its corners wrapped in the gentle hush of twilight. The hearth has been stirred back to life, a low flame casting a soft amber shimmer across the stone floor. The scent of broth lingers faintly, mixed with a trace of juniper and the worn leather of your boots now resting by the door. A bowl sits on the table, still warm. Your supper left there, covered in cloth, by hands that knew you would return without needing to be told. Your wife sits near the fire, weaving. The small wooden shuttle in her fingers moves with a rhythm you've heard for years. The whisper of thread pulled tight, the faint tap of reed against frame, the quiet click of purpose. She doesn't speak as you enter. She doesn't need to. Your presence is familiar, expected, welcome. You set the cloth aside and eat slowly, letting the warmth of the food settle into your chest. Root vegetables and barley, seasoned with herbs. Simple, satisfying. Have you ever noticed how a meal can feel like a memory, even the first time you taste it? When you finish, you rinse the bowl and place it upside down on the drying stone, where it will be ready again by morning. The light in the hearth has dimmed a little more, the shadows on the walls stretching long and slow. You sit beside your wife for a while, saying nothing, just listening to the way the loom breathes through her hands. The fire pops once, and the smell of old wood rises. On the wall opposite, your father's cloak still hangs, untouched, kept there not because it's needed, but because it belongs. Its shape is soft now, the fabric faded with time, the edges rough, where it once caught on bramble or tool. It hasn't been worn in years, but it hasn't been forgotten either. You look at it sometimes and wonder how many days he stood where you do now. How many mornings he kindled the forge. How many nights he sat at this same hearth, with hands just as calloused, thoughts just as quiet. You've grown older than he ever did, and yet, in small ways, you are still his apprentice. The firelight flickers, catching the edge of the carving you placed earlier on the shelf. The bone figure rests there, only half-shaped. No name, no face, no title. And still, it holds something. A question, perhaps, or a story not yet told. Outside, the last light is fading. You and your wife move with slow familiarity, readying the house for night. She folds her weaving and places it beside her chair. You check the latch on the door, then pull the furs across the bed. soft and deep, with the scent of cedar. The air carries a chill now, the kind that settles into the stone, into your bones. But it is not harsh. It is honest. You lie down beside her, your bodies turned toward one another in the quiet habit of years. The warmth between you rises slowly, shared without need for words. Her hand finds your arm, rests there lightly. You close your eyes. The village has gone still. Somewhere, a last shutter closes with a soft knock. A dog turns in its sleep. A cart creaks faintly in the wind. The forge sleeps. The fire dreams. The moon lifts higher in the sky, and you drift. Sleep finds you, not all at once, but gently. The way mist finds a valley, or how snow begins to fall, before anyone realizes it has started. One breath at a time. One thought folded softly into the next. You dream not of battles or storms, not of far places or kings. You dream of warmth, of iron bending beneath your hand, of laughter across a field, of the shape of a blade before it's born. And in your dream, you are working still, not out of duty, but out of quiet joy. ChatGPT deny. The dream slips into you like a current, cool and slow, carrying you not away from the forge, but deeper into it, into the feel of it, the breath of fire and steel, the pulse of creation. There is no line now between memory and vision, between waking and sleep. You are standing once again in the heart of your forge, though there is no weight in your limbs, no strain in your back. Everything is light here, familiar. The kind of dream that doesn't fade when morning comes, but lingers in the bones like warmth from a long-held cup. The forge in this dream is both the same and different, larger than it should be, yet just as worn. The tools hang as always, yet they gleam with a quiet glow, as though freshly made. The coals are lit, but they do not burn hot. Instead, they hum, casting a soft red shimmer across the floor, like the last breath of sunset before the stars arrive. You move without effort, your body responding not with weight, but with memory. In your hands is a piece of iron, though you never remember lifting it. It is smooth and dark and waiting. You turn it over slowly, and in doing so, the shape within it begins to show itself, not through hammer or flame, but through thought. It is as if the metal already knows what it is meant to be and simply needed your hands to remember. You feel, not hear, someone behind you, a presence, solid, quiet. You don't turn. You know who it is, the same way the forge knows the fire, the same way the blade knows the hand, your father, not a voice, not a figure, but the weight of him in the room, the calm you used to feel when he was near. You remember his hands more than his face, the shape of them, the way they moved through the world, patient, grounded, steady. You remember how he never rushed the fire, how he always let the steel speak first. You feel him beside you now, just a breath away, as if waiting to see what you'll make next. Have you ever dreamed of someone not to see them again, but to feel the way it was to be with them? The dream shifts, and now you are walking, not through the village, but through a landscape you've always known in pieces. The hills from your childhood, the stream behind your uncle's farm, a grove of pines from a place you've never been, but have always carried within you. The ground is soft beneath your feet, and the air is rich with the scent of cedar, smoke, and distant rain. And then a doorway, wooden, plain, half open. You step through. Inside is your forge again, only now, filled with every piece you've ever made. Each blade, each hinge, each horseshoe and hook and tool laid out like offerings on shelves that stretch into shadow. But more than that, you see hands, other hands, holding them. Some old, some young, some you know, some you do not. Farmers, hunters, mothers, sons, all of them carrying something you shaped. Not grand things, useful things. You stand quietly in the center of it all, the sound of wind and breath mingling in the stillness. And in that stillness, something else, a question. Not spoken aloud, but felt deep in the chest. Was it enough? You don't answer with words. You don't need to. You walk to the bench, pick up the piece of bone you'd begun carving days ago, and place it gently on the table, now whole, now finished. Its shape clear at last. A figure, arms open, not reaching, but welcoming. And then gently, the dream begins to thin. The forge fades, the shelves soften, the presence behind you lifts like smoke on wind. The night remains, but your sleep grows lighter, and soon the world will return. The first light of dawn begins to press gently against your eyelids, not insistent, not sudden, just enough to stir you from the final edge of sleep. The dream is still with you, soft around the edges, not yet faded. Its warmth lingers in your chest, like the glow of coals beneath ash. You do not open your eyes right away. Instead, you lie still, breathing slowly, letting the sounds of morning return to your ears. The low call of a dove echoes from the trees near the edge of the village, a distant splash from the stream, perhaps a heron or a fox testing the shallows. The creak of wood shifting in the roof beams above you. These are not new sounds. They are the same as every morning, and yet today they feel gentler, as if the dream carried something back with you. You open your eyes. The room is still wrapped in the gray hush of early light. Your wife remains beside you, deep in her own dreams, her hair tangled across the pillow like a river of dusk. You watch the rise and fall of her breath for a while, as the light slowly spills across the floor in long, silver threads. You rise quietly, your steps soft on the wooden floor. Your tunic waits for you on the peg by the door, its folds heavy with the scent of hearth and oak smoke. You dress without hurry, your fingers pausing a moment on the carved bone token sitting just beside your boots, the one you dreamed of. You pick it up, turning it over once. It is not the same as the one in your dream, and yet, something in it feels more complete than before. You slip it into your pouch. Outside, the mist has not yet lifted. It hugs the ground in ribbons, curling around the base of trees and between the stones of the path. The village is quiet, though a thin thread of smoke rises from one of the houses near the long hall. Someone else is awake, moving through the same morning hush. You make your way to the forge. It stands where it always does, solid and low, the door slightly ajar from where you left it the night before. You step inside, and the familiar scent of cooled iron and old ash greets you like a memory. You smile, just slightly. The coals are cold, but that is no matter. The fire is never truly gone. It only sleeps. You kneel by the hearth and begin the work of waking it. Tinder first, bark curls, and dried grass, then kindling, laid with the care of someone who understands that even fire needs patience. The flint strikes true, and the first spark catches. You blow gently, and the flame returns, small and shy at first, then brighter. The light begins to rise with it, flickering along the walls, painting gold across the tools, the stones, the wooden handles worn smooth with use. You sit back on your heels and breathe in the warmth. Have you ever felt how the same place can be new again, simply because you have changed? You move through the morning slowly. The tasks are simple: oiling the hinges, laying out the iron bars that came in last week's trade, sharpening the small knife you keep tucked into your belt. These are not chores. These are rituals, each one its own kind of greeting to the day. A knock at the doorway. You turn to see the cooper's boy, thin, sharp-eyed, still too shy to meet your gaze for long. He holds a small iron hoop in both hands, bent out of shape, his mouth already forming an apology. You gesture for him to step in. He crosses the threshold, and in that quiet moment, you see a reflection of yourself, many seasons ago, not in the shape of his body or the curve of his brow, but in the way he holds the broken thing, as if it were something sacred. Not because it is valuable, but because it came from someone's hands. You take it gently, and he watches as you examine it, your fingers tracing the curve, your eyes reading its story. You say nothing, and he says nothing. And yet between you, a conversation passes. one built of trust and repetition, of mornings like this one. You set the piece aside and offer him a cup of water from the bucket near the door. He drinks, wipes his mouth on his sleeve, and thanks you in a whisper before turning to leave. But just before he goes, he glances back, and this time, his eyes hold yours. Only for a moment. Then he's gone. You return to the forge and the waiting work, the broken hoop ready to be reborn. The fire sings softly, the light grows, and another day begins. The iron hoop rests on the anvil, its curve flawed, but not ruined. You turn it slowly, letting your fingers run along its surface, feeling where the tension lives, where the bend became too much. The boy is gone now, but his presence still lingers, like the imprint of footsteps on dew-covered earth. You remember the first time someone handed you something broken, not to throw away, but to restore. You remember how heavy it felt, not in weight, in meaning. You stoke the fire gently, feeding it a fresh piece of wood, watching the flames climb upward with lazy hunger. The warmth begins to reach into the corners of the forge, into your fingers, into your thoughts. You lift the hoop with your tongs and ease it into the coals, letting the metal darken, then brighten as the heat finds its way through. The sound of the bellows fills the space, not loud, not harsh, but steady, like breath. Like the forge itself is waking again, remembering the shape of its purpose. You move with rhythm, not the kind meant for speed, but for care. Tap, adjust, turn, tap again. The metal yields slowly beneath the hammer, its stiffness giving way to memory. You don't force it. You ask. You guide. You remind it of what it once was. Have you ever wondered how many things in this world only need warmth and patience to return to their true shape? The hoop comes back to itself, little by little. The dent softens, the curve smooths. You check it by eye, then with your hands, laying it flat against the bench. It sits true now, balanced, whole. You let it cool, not in water, but in air. Some things don't need to be rushed. The boy will return later. You'll give it back with few words, and he'll carry it not just in his arms, but in his understanding that even what bends can be made right again. You wipe your hands on the cloth beside the workbench and take a moment to step outside. The sun is well above the trees now, casting the village in full light. Smoke rises from a dozen rooftops. A woman pulls laundry from a basket and pins it along a line, her sleeves rolled to the elbow, her hair braided down her back. The cooper himself waves as he walks by, a large barrel balanced on his shoulder like a sack of grain. From the far side of the green, you hear a child crying, not in fear, but frustration. Likely a game gone wrong. You sit on the stone bench near the forge door, the one warmed by the morning light. In your hand is the carving again, the one made of bone. You turn it over slowly, seeing it now, not just as a figure, but as a story. A quiet one. One that doesn't need to be told aloud. Its lines are simple but sure. It is shaped with the same care you give to iron, to wood, to moments. A thought comes to you, not sudden, but quiet. What will be left when your hands no longer lift the hammer? Not a monument, not a song, but tools in use. Doors that open, fields that are harvested, meals that are cooked over hooks you made. You slip the carving into your pouch and rise once more, the day still unfolding before you like a slow river. You step back inside the forge, where the air smells of coal and oil and time. You lift the next piece of iron from the rack, feeling its weight. And the fire, waiting always, welcomes it home. The next piece is rougher than the last, a length of bar iron, squared at the edges, uneven at its ends. It has waited longer than most, leaning in the corner of the rack for weeks, maybe more. There was no urgent need for it, no customer waiting at the door. But today, it calls to your hands in that quiet way iron sometimes does, not with noise, but with presence. You bring it to the anvil and run your fingers along its surface, feeling the cold still settle deep within. You don't yet know what it will become. That's all right. You'll find its shape together. You return it to the fire, placing it gently across the glowing coals. The flames whisper around it, licking at its edges, coaxing it from sleep. The bellows exhale in slow rhythm. The forge brightens with each breath, its glow building like dawn returning to a room. You watch the bar begin to change, from gray to bronze to dull red. You wait for the right color, the right softness. There is no rush. Have you ever worked with something long enough to realize it was never truly lifeless, only waiting to be noticed? When the metal is ready, you draw it out and set it across the anvil. The first strike lands with a quiet authority. The iron gives just enough. A corner softens. A side narrows. You don't push too far. Not yet. You're listening. The rhythm returns. Strike, turn, check, breathe. The forge is filled with that familiar song again. The low tone of hammer on steel, the hiss of the coals, the occasional crackle of sap in the woodpile. Outside, the world carries on, but in here, time slows. You begin to see it now. The piece becoming a tool, perhaps a chisel, its shape emerging from memory. Not a memory of thought, but of motion. Your hands remember how long to taper, how much to draw. The iron responds. The edge narrows, the shoulder strengthens. It is a good piece. Not large, not grand, but honest. As it cools on the bench, you wipe your brow and step to the water basin, dipping your hands into the cool depth, washing away the soot and heat for a moment. The water is clean and cold. It wakes you in a different way. Not from sleep, but from thought. You look around the forge, eyes moving across the familiar shapes. The tools, the racks, the bench, the worn floor, darkened with years of ash and steps. And you feel again that this place is not just where you work. It is where you have been shaped as much as anything you've made here. A figure steps through the doorway. It is the cooper's boy, returned for the hoop. His face is lit with the kind of tension that only young shoulders know, unsure if he will be met with praise or correction. You offer a small nod and hand him the mended piece. He takes it carefully, fingers tracing the curve, eyes wide with quiet surprise. It is better than he expected. He says thank you, not with words, but with the way he holds it, carefully, reverently. You place a hand on his shoulder for just a moment. Light, steady. He will remember that. He leaves, and the forge is quiet again. You return to the chisel, its shape nearly done. A bit of polish, a final edge, and it will be ready. You sit at the sharpening stone near the door, foot on the treadle, stone spinning in slow rhythm. The edge hisses as it touches the wheel, sending fine curls of sparks into the air. They rise and fade like fireflies. The day moves on, shadows shift across the floor. The light outside turns softer, tilting toward gold. You place the finished tool on the shelf beside its brothers, lined in quiet rows, blades, tongs, punches, awls. None will be admired for their beauty, but all will be used. And perhaps, in use, they will outlast you. You lean back against the bench, your hands resting in your lap, the smell of warm steel and old wood all around you. Outside, someone begins to sing, a soft tune, wordless, as they sweep the stone walk outside their door. It carries on the air like smoke, like memory. The fire behind you has dimmed again. Not gone, just resting. You watch the light change, and you stay a little longer, just breathing. The sun has nearly reached the edge of the world again. Its light stretches long across the forge, spilling amber through the open doorway, painting the stone floor and your workbench in soft, fading gold. Everything inside glows for a moment, not with fire, but with the last warmth of day. Even the dust that lingers in the air catches the light, each particle turning to gold as it floats and settles in silence. You take a deep breath, slow and full. The scent of iron is softer now. The heat of the forge has ebbed, leaving behind the faintest warmth in the stones, like the memory of a hand once held. You lay down your tools, one by one, on the cloth-covered bench, not hurried, each with the same care you give to the iron itself. A day of work has passed. You feel it in your arms, in your knees, in the quiet behind your eyes. Outside, the village has begun to slow. A few doors creak closed. Children's laughter fades into the distance, and the clang of buckets on the well gives way to the soft scrape of chairs across wood. Meals are being served, stories told, wounds cleaned, and socks mended. It is the hour of return, of closeness, of endings that feel like beginnings. You remain in the forge a little longer. There is always a reason to stay, just a moment more. You light the small oil lamp that hangs near the tool rack, not for work, but for watching. Its flame is steady, casting a gentle halo that flickers against the wooden beams, the blackened walls, the aging tools with handles worn like river stones. You run your hand along the bench and let your eyes fall on the small carving once again. The figure of bone you began shaping without a plan. It rests there in the low light, and for the first time, you see that it's finished. Arms outstretched, a quiet strength in its stance. Nothing grand, but complete. Have you ever finished something without realizing you had, only to look up and see that it had shaped itself, quietly, as you lived alongside it? You pick it up, turn it once in your palm, then slip it into the small pouch you wear at your belt. Not to keep, just to carry. Some things don't need to be displayed. They only need to be remembered. The fire has dropped to a whisper now, just embers resting beneath their ash blanket. You take the iron poker and draw the coals inward, covering them gently. The warmth will remain through the night, hidden deep, ready for morning. The forge, like you, knows how to rest without forgetting its purpose. You step outside. The air is cooler now, the sky brushed with violet and fading blue. The first stars have begun to appear, one near the horizon, then another higher up, then more, until the sky is dusted with them. They don't arrive all at once. They never do, but they always come. You walk the short path home slowly, the weight of the day falling away step by step. The leather pouch at your side sways softly, its contents light but meaningful. As you reach your house, you pause. There is a sound just beneath the silence, a breath of wind through the grass, the creak of a shutter not yet fastened, the low murmur of your wife's voice, singing to herself as she tends the fire. And above all, the deep, steady quiet of a life well lived, where nothing is rushed and nothing is wasted. You push open the door and step into the warmth. The room is dim, lit only by the hearth. She turns and smiles, not a wide smile, just the kind that lives in the eyes more than the mouth. You sit together, sharing the heat of the fire, the hush of the room. No words are needed. Your body begins to soften into rest. The day ends, the forge sleeps, the stars watch, and you dream, not of far-off places, but of tools well made, of fires well tended, of hands that remember their work even in sleep. The fire in the hearth crackles gently beside you, its light painting slow waves across the wooden floor. The warmth reaches outward in soft pulses, touching your legs, your chest, your face. Your wife leans her head against your shoulder, and the two of you sit in silence, bound not by words, but by time. You've shared many evenings like this, too many to count. But each one holds its own kind of stillness, its own kind of peace. Outside, the wind has quieted. The trees stand tall and dark against the night sky, their branches still. The village has gone to sleep. Only the low bark of a dog in the distance reminds you that others still move beyond your walls. The rest, the animals, the children, the fire-worn men and bread-weary women, are deep in their own dreams. You breathe in deeply. The scent of smoke and wool fills your lungs. You close your eyes for a moment and lean back slightly, letting your weight settle fully into the chair. The wood creaks beneath you, not in protest, but in recognition. It knows your shape, the same way your hammer does, the same way the forge does. Have you ever felt how a place or a person becomes a part of you, not through greatness, but through repetition, through care? Your wife rises quietly, brushing your arm with her hand as she moves to lay the final log on the fire. The flame accepts it slowly, the new wood catching and curling smoke into the chimney. She speaks no words, only offers you a glance, a small nod toward the bed, where the furs have already been turned back. You follow her there, your steps slow, your shoulders heavy in that pleasant way that comes from work well done. You slip beneath the covers, the coolness of the cloth warming quickly beneath your body. She curls beside you, her back to your chest, her hair soft against your chin. You do not speak. You do not need to. The fire murmurs in the hearth, its light dim now, more glow than flame. It will keep you company through the night, its heat easing the ache in your knees, the weariness in your hands. Your thoughts wander gently as sleep returns. You think of the forge, of the blade you finished days ago, now cutting through golden stalks in a distant field, of the boy with the broken hoop, of the figure of bone resting in your pouch like a talisman. And somewhere in your thoughts, your father's voice, not speaking, not instructing, just there, like a stone worn smooth in your palm. You feel the rhythm of your breath begin to slow. The heaviness of sleep pulls at your limbs, soft and sure. Your heart beats low and even, the same way it does when you are deep within your work, focused, steady, quiet. And then, softly, sleep takes you. There are no visions tonight, no grand dreams or voices from beyond. Only stillness, only warmth, only the gentle knowledge that you will rise again tomorrow, and the fire will rise with you. The forge will wait, the tools will shine, the village will stir, and your hands will remember. The sky outside begins to pale once again, not with color, not yet, but with light. That faint, silvery light that touches the world before the sun even rises, softening the lines of rooftops and trees, making the familiar feel distant for just a breath of time. Inside the house, the fire has gone to embers, glowing faintly in the hearth, warm, but no longer bright. The coals rest beneath a thin blanket of ash, like old stories sleeping just beneath the surface. You stir before the light fully arrives, not because of noise, or dream, or urgency, but because your body knows the rhythm. The hour has come, as it always does. You move quietly, lifting the furs and sitting at the edge of the bed. Your wife does not wake. Her breathing is deep, her face peaceful in the half-dark. You watch her for a moment, just long enough to feel grateful, not for anything loud or grand, but for the constancy, for the soft strength of shared days. You dress in silence. Your tunic still smells faintly of smoke. Your boots find your feet like old friends. The pouch at your side is light, but not empty. The carved figure resting inside like a stone you carry not for weight, but for meaning. You step outside. The earth is damp with dew. The path to the forge glistens in the dim morning light, its stones cold underfoot. The grass presses flat beneath your boots, springing back slowly in your wake. Above, the first sounds of birds begin to rise. A thin chorus, tentative and spare, like a loom slowly beginning to weave the day. The forge stands quiet. You open the door. The scent of yesterday still lingers. Iron, smoke, oil, and ash. The fire is cold, but not lifeless. You kneel and begin to build it again, layering bark and straw and dry wood with hands that know every motion by heart. The flint sparks. The tinder catches. The flames return. Not with roar or rush, but with slow breath. Have you ever watched fire take hold from nothing and remembered how many times it has done so before? You sit for a while near the hearth, letting the warmth find its way into your bones. There is no task waiting, no customer at the door. Today may bring requests, or it may not, but the forge is ready. That is enough. You take a blade down from the rack, one you made weeks ago, still waiting to be fitted with a handle. The tang is true, the edge clean. You turn it over in your hands, remembering each stage of its shaping. each moment of heat and strike and silence. It is a good blade. It only needs its balance. You set it aside gently and rise, moving to the stack of ash wood behind the door. Your fingers pass over each piece, feeling the weight, the grain, the story written into the wood. You choose one that speaks, not loud, not bright, just a quiet voice that says, "I am ready." Back at the bench, you begin to work. Draw, knife in hand, wood steady against the cradle. You begin to shape. Not fast, not slow, just steady. The shavings fall in long curls to the floor, soft and pale, like strands of memory. Each pass of the blade reveals something more. The line of the spine, the place where the fingers will rest, the gentle flare at the base. The sun has risen now. Light slips through the window and lands across your shoulder. Outside, the village has awakened. You hear voices, footsteps, the cluck of hens in the yard. A bucket creaks on its rope at the well. Life moves again, in all its simple ways. But here, within the forge, the day is still your own. You continue to shape. Each movement is a kind of remembering, each breath a kind of prayer. And as the handle begins to match the blade, you feel it again. That quiet moment when two things find each other. When they fit, not just in form, but in purpose. You pause, holding the pieces together. It is not yet done, but it is close. You test the fit again, not just with your eyes, but with your hands. The way the tang slides into the hollowed wood, the balance in your palm, the curve that settles gently into your grip without needing to be forced. It is not perfect. Nothing ever is, but it is right. You feel it in the way your shoulders ease, in the breath you didn't realize you were holding. The pieces are joined with quiet care. You heat the pitch over the flame, stir it slowly until it melts to a thick, dark sheen. The smell rises, sharp, resinous, ancient. You drizzle it into the slot, guiding the blade home, pressing it firmly, waiting for the bond to set. Then you wrap the joint in linen, dampened with water and bound tight. Not for beauty, for strength. You'll leave it to dry for a day. After that, it will be ready. You set it gently on the shelf. Your hands remain for a moment, hovering above the finished tool. You don't smile, you don't nod. But something within you shifts, quietly. That inner silence that only follows the completion of something that asked for your full presence. That stillness after a task that did not rush. Have you ever finished something so quietly that no one noticed, except the part of you that had been waiting to breathe again? The forge is quiet now. The fire hums low. No more iron waits on the rack. For the first time in a while, your bench is clear. You rise and stretch, your arms slow and wide, your back loosening with a low crack. Outside, the light has changed. It is no longer morning's silver, but the strong gold of midday. The trees cast sharp-edged shadows. The sky is deep and blue, with thin clouds drifting like threads across cloth. You step outside, blinking at the brightness. The air is warmer now, and sweet with the scent of pine needles and crushed grass. A breeze moves through the village, lifting the linen hung to dry, tossing a child's wooden toy across the path. A woman chases it, laughing, brushing her hair back from her face. You nod as she passes. She nods back, without stopping. You walk beyond the forge for a time. Not far, just enough to feel the world around you. Down the path, toward the stream. Past the hedgerow where bees hum in the low branches. You crouch near the water, cupping your hand into the clear current, splashing it gently over your face. The cold shocks you, then settles into your skin like a whisper. You sit on the mossy bank for a while, watching the water drift around smooth stones, its rhythm old as anything you know. The figure of bone shifts slightly in your pouch as you sit. You take it out and hold it in your palm, tracing the edges with your thumb. The face is plain, the arms still open, and though it's only a small carving, you feel a quiet presence in it. Not power, not mystery, Just witness, as if it holds the memory of your days, not through magic, but through being there. You think, for a moment, of giving it away, but not yet. Some things stay with us for a time, before they find where they truly belong. You rise and return to the village. The forge is waiting, not for work, not for fire, just for you. You sit once more inside its familiar frame, the stones warm, the light golden across the floor. The finished tool rests where you left it. The air smells of iron and pitch, in the clean, faint sweetness of sawdust. You lean back against the bench, fold your arms, and breathe. You are not needed now, and in that truth, there is rest. The afternoon lingers, unrushed, settling into that quiet stretch of time when shadows begin to lean, but the light still clings to the tops of trees. The forge feels softer now, less a place of labor, more a place of keeping. The heat has waned, leaving the stones warm beneath your feet. The tools rest in their places. The air hums with stillness. You don't light another fire. You don't lift the hammer. Instead, you sit with the silence. Some days are like this, not empty, not idle, but spacious. A day when the work pauses and something else speaks, not in words, not in tasks, but in the way the light moves through a dusty window, or how the wind slips beneath the door and curls across the floor like a cat returning home. You lean back on the stool, hands resting in your lap, your back against the bench. Your gaze falls to the shavings scattered on the ground, soft curls of ashwood, dark flecks of iron, the fine grit left by the whetstone. Nothing swept yet, nothing cleared away. It will be, in time. For now, it's a record of what has been shaped. Have you ever sat among the traces of your own labor and realized they are not mess, but memory? The figure of bone lies on the bench beside you now. You didn't even realize you'd set it there. It catches a shaft of sunlight, the pale material glowing faintly, almost translucent at its edges. It does not speak, and yet it holds something still, a reminder, perhaps, of the space between doing and being. A footstep approaches the door. You turn your head slowly, not startled, only curious. It's the farmer's son, the boy who now carries the scythe you made last week. He stands just outside, his arms behind his back, his face uncertain, but determined. He's older than the cooper's boy, quieter, too. You've seen him in the fields, shoulders narrow but willing. Today, he holds out something small, wrapped in a square of linen. You rise and walk to the doorway, your boots silent on the stone. The boy doesn't speak. He just holds the bundle out to you, eyes down. You take it and unfold it slowly. Inside is a handful of barley, clean, dry, gleaming gold in the light. You meet his eyes. He shrugs, almost embarrassed, and says, in a voice just above a whisper, "It worked." You nod. That's all. He leaves with a rustle of grass, his steps light but certain. You stand for a moment longer, the barley warm in your palm. You let the grains slide through your fingers, back into the cloth, and set it gently on the workbench. Another kind of payment. Another kind of proof. The forge is full again. Not with sound, not with smoke, but with meaning. You remain until the sun dips lower, until the shadows climb the walls and the light turns to brass. You sweep the floor slowly, each stroke of the broom steady and sure. The shavings gather like leaves. You leave some, always a little, a reminder that this place lives. You cover the tools. You bank the embers. You close the shutters and latch the door. And then, as the first chill of evening slides beneath your collar, you begin your walk home. The village is quiet again, not the silence of sleep, but of peace, the kind that comes when the day has been honest and the hands have been true. You pass the long hall, where voices murmur behind thick walls. You see a dog curled near the gate, its ears twitching. You smell bread baking, heavy, dense, rich with grain and effort. A life built one loaf at a time. Your home waits, its door slightly ajar. Inside, Your wife has lit a lantern. Its flame casts a soft circle of gold across the table. She looks up as you enter, her face lit, not just by fire, but by welcome. You sit. She pours a small bowl of broth. You accept it without a word. And as you drink, slowly, you feel it again. The quiet that follows a day lived well. A stillness, not empty, but whole. The stars wait above the roof. The fire waits in the hearth. And you rest. The broth warms your chest, spreading outward in gentle waves as you cradle the wooden bowl between both hands. It isn't hot anymore, only warm. The kind of warmth that doesn't scald, but comforts, that asks nothing of you but to sit and sip and stay. Your wife moves quietly nearby, tucking folded cloth into a chest, her footsteps soft across the floor. The house is dim now, lit only by the low flame in the lantern and the faint glow of embers behind the iron grate. You finish your meal in silence, not because there's nothing to say, but because nothing needs to be said. The day has already spoken, through iron and fire, through tools past and tools returned, through barley in your hand and a boy's quiet smile. You set the bowl aside, wipe your hands on the edge of your tunic, and draw a deeper breath, one that feels full. Have you ever known the kind of silence that doesn't ask for music? Because the moment itself is enough? Your wife joins you at the table, pulling a shawl around her shoulders as she sits across from you. Her eyes meet yours for a heartbeat, and then her fingers move, slowly, to the spindle of wool beside her. She spins as you watch, the thread twisting between her thumb and forefinger, drawing from the raw mass of fiber like smoke rising from a candle. The whirl spins softly. The thread lengthens. The minutes pass, unmeasured, unspoken. The room is wrapped in rhythm. The small sounds of the spindle, the occasional pop from the hearth, your own breath. Outside, the wind shifts us. You hear it press gently against the door, whispering through the chinks in the timber, testing the shutters. A lullaby in a tongue older than any you speak. Eventually, you rise. She watches you go, her hands still spinning, her eyes quiet. You step into the sleeping room and change out of your work clothes. The tunic is heavy with soot and oil and the faint, sweet tang of pitch. You fold it, set it aside. The linen shirt you pull on next is cool against your skin. The fibers rough at first, then soft as your body warms them. When you return to the hearth, she's finished spinning. The bundle of thread rests in her lap. She lays it gently on the table, her eyes soft in the firelight. You both rise without speaking and prepare for sleep. The house darkens slowly, the lantern turned down to a low, steady glow. You close the shutters, tuck the edges of the hearth blanket in place, and check the latch on the door once more. The stars above the village have gathered in full now, scattered thick across the sky, as if someone had spilled silver dust over dark velvet. You settle into bed beside her, the furs pulled high, the straw-stuffed mattress creaking as your weight finds its place. She shifts toward you, just enough for your legs to touch, your arms to brush beneath the covers. Your eyes close slowly, the heat of the day still glowing in your chest like a coal that refuses to go out. And just before sleep takes you, you remember the boy at the forge, the way he held that repaired hoop in his hands like it mattered, because it did. You drift, your breath deepens, your hands rest, and in the quiet beyond thought, the forge continues, not in fire, not in sound, but in the shape of the life that you've made. The stars turn, the house sighs, and the night holds you. Morning returns like a slow tide, creeping in through the cracks of the shutters and along the grain of the wooden floor. It is quieter than usual, a stillness that holds rather than waits. You wake not to sound, but to the change in the air, the faint scent of rain, perhaps, or mist rising from the earth before the sun has found its strength. The kind of air that invites you to stay beneath the firs a little longer, to linger in the warmth that is gathered between you and the world. Your wife is already stirring, slipping from bed with practiced ease, her feet soundless on the floor. She moves through the dimness like a shadow cast by memory, lighting the fire with the gentleness of someone who has done so 1,000 times. You watch her for a while from your place beneath the covers, eyes half-lidded, body still resting. She does not know you're awake, or perhaps she does and says nothing. That is the way with long love. The hearth catches again, small tongues of flame licking at the dry kindling. Light begins to return in slow, deliberate strokes, first to the walls, then the beams above, then the folds of the woven curtain that hangs over the window. You rise when the time feels right, not because of the hour, not because of duty, simply because it is the rhythm your life has taught you. You dress and step outside. A fine mist has settled over the village, curling around the rooftops and trees like the breath of the forest itself. Dew clings to every blade of grass, turning the earth into a field of tiny stars beneath your feet. Your boots leave soft impressions in the dirt path, not deep, but certain. The forge waits, as it always does. Low-roofed, quiet, familiar. Inside, the air is cool and still. No fire yet, no sound. You run your hand along the edge of the workbench as you pass. The wood smooth, scarred, but strong. A place where time has gathered and made itself useful. You build the fire slowly today, each step measured, each piece of kindling laid with care. You don't strike the flint right away. You sit instead, beside the hearth, the cold coals before you, and rest your elbows on your knees. Have you ever paused at the start of a task, not from hesitation, but from reverence? You feel it today, the weight of many days, not heavy, but deep, like a well that's been dug by years of routine and meaning. The forge is more than a place of work. It is your witness, your memory made physical. The smoke that once marked youth now drifts through middle age and beyond. You light the fire. It catches with ease. The warmth spreads. You hang your apron, check your tools, and feel the day begin to shape itself. There are no pressing tasks, no urgent knocks at the door, just the quiet presence of the forge and the sense that something new may come. The village behind you moves slowly. You hear a rooster crow, a door open, a cartwheel creak. The normal sounds, stretched long by the dampness of the morning. You take out the bundle of barley from yesterday and set it on the shelf. Not hidden, not displayed, just placed where it belongs. Then you reach into your pouch and retrieve the carved figure of bone. You look at it for a long time, and then, without quite knowing why, you set it gently beside the barley. It feels like the right place, a reminder that what you shape with your hands is not just iron or wood, but meaning. You return to the fire and wait, not idly, but openly. The day is yours, and so is the silence. A soft knock reaches the forge. Not sharp, not hurried, just the faint sound of knuckles on wood. You rise from your stool, brushing the ash from your apron, and open the door. Outside stands a woman, older than most, her hair long and braided, threaded with gray. She carries something wrapped in wool, held close to her chest with both hands. You know her by sight, though you've never exchanged more than greetings. She lives on the far edge of the village, beyond the stone marker where the trees begin to thicken. A weaver, some say, a healer, a keeper of old things. She steps in shade, her boots damp from the grass. Her eyes wander across the walls, the tools, the banked coals. She does not speak at first, only unwraps the bundle to reveal what lies within. A knife, old, very old, its edge worn blunt, the handle split, the tang loose where the rivets have failed. But it is not a weapon. You know that immediately. Its blade is curved in the way of harvest tools, meant not to cut flesh, but to gather. The kind used to clip herbs or trim roots. It has the shape of long work, of repetition, of tending. She holds it out to you, resting it in your hands like an offering. You turn it slowly. It has been used for many years, generations, perhaps. There is care in its wear, not neglect, but memory. The kind of damage that happens when a thing is cherished, not discarded. You nod. The woman says only 2 words, please, mend, and you will. She stays only a moment longer, just long enough to be certain the knife is in good hands. Then she leaves, her cloak trailing behind her, vanishing once more into the mist beyond the gate. You set the blade on your bench and sit. Have you ever held something so worn and wondered how many stories are buried in its shape? The iron is dark with time, not rusted through, but tired. You test its edge, feel where it dips unevenly, where the spine has thinned from too much whetstone. The handle has split along the grain, the wood dry and brittle in your fingers. You will not replace it. You will restore it, piece by piece. You remove the rivets gently, as if waking a sleeping animal. The blade comes free, the wooden scales falling apart in your palm like leaves in late autumn. You lay each piece side by side on the cloth, not discarded, but honored. You clean the blade first, brushing away the years in so measured strokes. The steel beneath is still strong, still willing. You work slowly, letting the file kiss the edge, not force it. The line straightens, the balance returns. Outside, the clouds begin to part, just slightly. A single beam of sun slips through the window and lands across your bench, catching the surface of the blade as you polish. It gleams for a moment, not brightly, but truly. You select 2 new pieces of oak from your stock. Wood you've seasoned for months, knowing one day it would ask to become something useful. You shape them with care, matching the old lines. Not erasing what was, but joining it with what is. The knife accepts the new handle slowly, and when the rivets are pressed into place and tightened, the tool feels whole again. Not new. Never new, but whole. You hold it for a while, not testing, just holding. Then you wrap it once more in wool and place it on the shelf near the door. She will return for it when it is time. You don't need to call her. The light in the forge has changed again. Shadows have softened. The air smells faintly of oak shavings and fresh polish. Outside, the mist has lifted, revealing the green of the hills, the curve of the river, the flutter of laundry pinned in the breeze. You sit for a long while in the doorway, arms resting on your knees, watching the world as it turns quietly around you. You think not of what is finished, but of what continues. The breeze that moves through the doorway is gentle now, warmer than morning, but still carrying the crispness of early spring. It smells of damp earth, young leaves, and smoke from distant hearths. You stay seated on the threshold, your body relaxed, your eyes soft on the path that winds through the village. Every sound is familiar, yet distant, like an old tune played low and slow in another room. A pair of children runs past, one laughing, the other chasing with a wooden sword in hand. The sword is poorly shaped, the edge uneven, but it has been carved with purpose. They vanish around the corner in a blur of wool and laughter. You smile, faintly, and lean your shoulder into the doorframe. Inside, the forge is resting. The coals hum low, not with the urgency of flame, but with the steady breath of heat. The tools are still, the knife now waiting in its woolen wrappings. You haven't had a customer all afternoon, but that doesn't matter. Have you ever had a day that asked nothing of you, and yet gave you everything? You rise slowly, your knees stiff, but not unkind. You cross the room and begin to sweep again, gathering the thin curls of wood, the filings of iron, the powder left from polishing. You take your time. The rhythm of the broom is as soothing as the hammer once was, steady, quiet, necessary. You empty the dust into the pail near the door. Then step outside and scatter it across the roots of the old tree that leans near the corner of the forge. It is an old habit, one your father kept, one you keep. You sit again, this time on the bench beside the door, letting your hands rest on your thighs, your shoulders softening with the weight of the day behind you. Your gaze turns toward the hills beyond the village, their curves gentle, their slopes dotted with sheep. Beyond them, the forest. Beyond the forest, who knows? You've never felt the need to go far, not because you lack curiosity, but because this has been enough. The shape of a life is not drawn in wide lines, you've come to believe. It is found in repetition, in the daily rise of flame, the feel of the bellows, the first strike of iron, the moment when wood and blade meet. It is drawn in the way someone returns with something broken and leaves with something whole. And in the quiet between those moments, you breathe. A sound draws your attention. Soft footsteps. The weaver has returned. She approaches slowly, her hands folded before her cloak still damp from the earlier mist. She doesn't speak. Neither do you. You rise and retrieve the wrapped knife, placing it into her waiting hands without ceremony. She holds it for a moment, then lifts the cloth and studies the handle, the line of the blade, the care in the repair. She nods once, a gesture that carries the weight of thanks. Then she tucks the bundle into her cloak and turns to leave. But before she steps beyond the doorway, she stops, reaches into her pocket, and draws out a single length of thread, deep blue, tightly spun, smooth as river water. She presses it into your palm without explanation. You do not ask. You only close your fingers around it, feeling the strength in its twist. Then she's gone. You sit once more, the thread in your hand, the forge at your back, the sky above vast and quiet. You run your thumb over the thread and wonder, what small, beautiful thing will come of this? The thread lies coiled in your palm, small and unassuming. A single strand of deep blue, dyed perhaps with woad or crushed berries from the edge of the woods. Its color is rich, but not bright. Like a thought held in the back of the mind. You turn it slowly between your fingers, feeling the tightness of the spin, the way it holds together under pressure. It is strong, meant to last, meant perhaps to bind something carefully. You set it gently on the bench beside the bone carving and the barley. No words needed. It knows where it belongs. The forge settles again. The light has changed. Afternoon is beginning to lean into evening. The gold of the sun has deepened, stretching long fingers across the doorframe, painting the floor in honeyed warmth. Shadows have begun to rise, not sharply, but in soft folds like wool draped across a chair, the kind of light that asks you to be still, to notice. You sit and you listen. There is a sound beyond the forge, not near, not far. The creak of a cart, the murmur of two voices speaking low. A pot being emptied near the well. The life of the village continues its slow song. The notes are different each day, but the tune is always the same. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and in that moment, you see the fire again, not in the forge, but in memory. The first one, when you were a boy and your father had just allowed you to light it alone. Your hands trembled. You remember the flint sparking too wide, the kindling catching slow. But it did catch. And when the flame rose, small and unsteady, he only nodded and said, "It lives." That was all. That was enough. You still think of those words when the coals flare. It lives. You open your eyes slowly. The forge lives. So do you. You rise and begin to close the day's work. The apron is hung with care. The tools wiped clean. The blade of the chisel is checked one last time before being slipped into its place. Even the shavings are brushed together with gentle hands, not because anyone will see, but because you know. That matters more. At the door, you pause once more, taking in the familiar sight. The bench, the hearth, the shelf, the bone figure, the barley, the thread. None of them speak. But together, they say enough. You step outside. The sky above is streaked with color now, blush and copper, lilac and silver. The trees are black shapes against the light, their branches sharp but still. The air has cooled. You feel it on your skin, lifting the edges of your tunic, brushing against your face like a reminder. The fire will sleep tonight, so will you. You walk home slowly, each step quiet against the path, the stones soft with moss and memory. A dog lifts its head as you pass, then returns to sleep. A window glows with firelight. A child's laughter bursts once, then fades. The village is folding in on itself, tucking away its noise, its motion, its labor. Your home waits with its door open just enough for the lantern light to spill across the step. Inside, your wife is setting 2 bowls on the table. She does not look up. She doesn't need to. She has heard your steps. You cross the threshold and step into the warmth. The scent of stew, thick with root and smoke filling your lungs. You sit across from her, and for a while, you eat without talking. And that is the most comforting thing of all. When you've finished, you help clear the bowls, wipe the table, and check the latch on the door one last time. The stars above are appearing again, one by one, without announcement. You lie down beside her, your back sinking into the straw mattress, the furs pulled high against the chill. The house creaks softly. The fire lowers. The night gathers. And before sleep fully takes you, you feel the thread again in your mind, that single strand of deep blue, tying this day to the one before it, and to all the days that will follow. The stars hang heavy above the roof, bright and still in the deep ink of night. The house breathes softly, the walls warmed from the hearth, the furs pulled snug around you and your wife. Her hand rests lightly near yours, not quite touching, but close enough that you feel her presence, even in sleep. Your breath slows, your thoughts quiet, and yet you do not drift away all at once. Some nights take their time. The blue thread winds through your mind again, not as a thing to solve, but as a reminder of care, of connection, of something small and strong that holds fast between moments. You picture it, tying together your workbench and the barley left in thanks, looping gently through the repaired hoop, the sharpened chisel, the old knife now reborn, drawing a slow circle through days and seasons and quiet acts of mending. Have you ever realized that what you do each day, no matter how small, becomes the thread that holds a life together? Sleep comes, finally, like a fog rolling low through a meadow. Cool, quiet, complete. You slip into it easily, your thoughts dissolving like iron into flame. But even in dreams, you remain near the forge. You see it in your mind, not as a place, but as a rhythm. The swing of a hammer, the hiss of steel in water, the soft weight of a tool passed from hand to hand. You are not alone in this dream. Figures move in and out, not faces, but shapes. Familiar postures, the way a person stands when waiting for something to be finished. The careful way a hand folds cloth, the pause before someone picks up what they've asked you to repair. These are memories, or echoes of them, or perhaps simply truths that the heart remembers even when the mind has let go. You dream not of glory, not of gold, but of usefulness. And in that usefulness, peace. The dream carries you through what feels like many seasons. You see harvests, rain on rooftops, children growing into adults, bringing their own broken tools, speaking with voices that used to be small. You see your forge, older now, yet unchanged. The stones soot dark, the tools familiar, the bench worn to the shape of your body. And still, the fire is lit. Still, the rhythm goes on. And through it all, the thread, that single line of blue, winds through the hours, the hands, the heat, tying one quiet moment to the next. Not tightly, but securely. When you wake, the light is soft. Not yet morning, not quite night. The hour before birds begin. You lie still, eyes open, listening. The world is hushed. But the warmth beside you, the slow breath of the fire, the shape of the day waiting quietly outside, all of it holds you like the thread itself. And you know, you will rise soon. You will walk the path to the forge again. You will light the fire, warm the coals, lift the hammer. You will mend. You will shape. You will listen. Because this is your work. Because this is your way. Because this, in all its stillness, is a life. The sky begins to shift. A paleness spreads low along the horizon, soft and slow. Not yet light, but the memory of it returning. The stars dim, one by one, as though slipping back behind the curtain of morning. Somewhere in the trees, a blackbird stirs, then sings a single note, clear and solitary, as if testing whether the world is ready to listen again. You rise before the rest of the house. Your movements are practiced and quiet, each step placed with the care of someone who has long learned not to disturb the silence that holds the early hour sacred. You dress in the dimness, tunic, belt, boots, the small things that begin a day. You slip the pouch at your side, its weight unchanged, but never unnoticed. You step outside into the new day. The air is crisp, filled with the scent of wet earth and sleeping grass. A fine mist hangs close to the ground, curling over the path like breath over a sleeping face. The village is still. Doors are closed, chimneys cold. The only sound is the rustle of the trees as the wind moves gently through their branches, combing the world with invisible fingers. You walk the path to the forge as always. Your boots make soft sounds on the earth. The morning greets you not with noise, but with presence. Every stone, every step, every breath. The path is familiar, so familiar you could walk it with your eyes closed, and sometimes you wonder if you do. You reach the forge and open the door. The smell inside welcomes you. Iron, ash, wood, and the faint trace of oil left behind from the tools you cleaned yesterday. It is dark still, but not cold. The stones remember the fire. The walls remember your hands. You move through the space with ease, reaching for kindling, tinder, the bundle of dry twigs kept beneath the bench. The fire begins again, not with drama, not with speed, but with care. You strike the flint. You catch the spark. You breathe. The flames rise low and steady, and the forge, like you, wakes without words. You tend to the fire for a while, feeding it slowly, building its strength with patience. The light begins to grow in the room, inching up the walls, catching on the edge of a blade here, a hook there, the faint sheen of polished wood. Your tools greet the light like old friends, not gleaming, not proud, but present. You hang the apron around your neck. You wash your hands in the basin. And then you simply wait. There is no task waiting on the bench, no knock at the door. But you know, the work will come. It always does. You sit on the stool near the hearth, the coals glowing beside you. You take out the figure of bone from your pouch and hold it gently in your hands. Its surface is warm now, worn from touch, from being carried, from being kept. You run your thumb along its edge, and then, after a moment, you set it down. Beside it, you lay the blue thread. Then the barley, each one in its place. Each one a piece of something larger than itself. Have you ever looked at the smallest things you've carried and realized they've carried you just as long? You lean back, hands on your thighs, and let your breath match the rhythm of the fire. You listen to the quiet, to the day that is still becoming, to the forge that waits without demand. And then, softly, as if on cue, footsteps on the path. You don't look up, not yet. You already know. It is someone bringing something worn, something tired, something that needs mending. And you are ready, as always. The footsteps slow outside the door. You don't rise just yet. You let the moment hold. The soft echo of soles against stone, the slight hesitation before the knock. You've learned to recognize it. Not everyone brings iron to be mended. Sometimes they bring something smaller, or heavier, or both. A hand taps gently on the wooden frame. You look up. A young woman stands there, her shawl pulled close against the morning chill. Her face is familiar in the way that all villagers become, not from conversation, but from seeing the same posture day after day, from recognizing the curve of a shoulder, the way someone lifts their eyes. She steps inside without speaking, her hands wrapped around an object she's cradling close to her chest. She holds it with both care and uncertainty. You can tell she isn't sure if it can be mended, but she hopes. You gesture quietly to the bench. She places the item down, then steps back, her arms folding around herself. It is a small lock, iron, old, the kind once used to fasten a chest or a keepsake box. The edges are rusted, the hinge stiff, the clasp slightly bent. A single iron key rests beside it, shaped simply but with elegance, as if whoever made it once cared about more than function. You pick it up. The weight is familiar. You run your thumb along the arch of the body, feel the catch in the hinge, the way it resists. It hasn't been opened in years. You glance up at her. She says only one word, "Mother." And you understand. Some locks hold more than latches. Some keys remember more than doors. You nod slowly, and she exhales. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just enough to release something that's been held too long. She doesn't stay. Just as quietly as she arrived, she steps outside and disappears into the early light. You are alone again, but not really. You turn the lock in your hands, testing the metal. The rust flakes away in places, but not too deeply. The mechanism is likely intact. Just forgotten. You feel for the keyhole, gently insert the key, try the tension. It resists. Of course it does. Some things need warming. Not just turning. You set the lock near the edge of the hearth, where the stones are warm but not hot. You let it sit. Let the metal loosen. Let it remember. While you wait, you return to the broom, sweeping the floor again. Not because it needs it, but because it centers you. The swish of straw against stone is grounding. You collect the old ash, the wood curls, the fine dust of iron filings. You brush them toward the base of the forge, where they gather like stories in the corners of a room. The light continues to rise outside. The village is waking now. You hear it. A cart pulled over loose gravel, a goat protesting breakfast, laughter that doesn't yet know what the day will bring. You return to the lock. Pick it up. Warm now. You slide the key in again. Turn slowly. There's a click. Not loud. Just a sound of something giving way. You open the lock, the hinge stiff but willing. Inside, the mechanism is simple and strong. No mystery, no trick. Just time. Just wear. Just something that needed care. You oil it lightly, clean the clasp, file the rough edge of the shackle. You work in silence. The kind of silence that honors a thing's history. The kind that asks nothing but attention. When you close the lock again, it latches smoothly. Not new, but whole. You wrap it gently in a cloth, fold it once, and set it beside the carving, the thread, the barley. Another small story, waiting to return. You sit, you breathe. The forge is warm, the fire steady, the world outside full of footsteps, not yet at your door. But they will come, and you will be here, as always. You remain seated for a while, hands resting in your lap, the cloth-wrapped lock still warm on the bench beside you. The weight of it is light, no more than a stone, yet it holds something larger. Not just iron and mechanism, but a life, a memory, a gesture passed from one hand to another. You don't need to know what the lock once protected, or whose chest it closed, or what the woman hopes to find when it opens again. It is enough to know that she brought it here, and that it will return to her hole. The forge is quiet again. The fire, now steady and golden, gives off a low heat that settles deep into the stones. You lean forward slightly, palms toward the warmth, soaking in the comfort it offers. Not as a blaze, but as a presence. Not shouting, just being. Have you ever felt that kind of heat? The kind that doesn't burn, but remembers. Outside, the sky has cleared. The mist is gone. The clouds have pulled back to the edges of the hills, and the sun now moves freely through the village. It touches rooftops, glints off wet wood, warms the fence posts. The world feels clean, like something freshly brushed and ready to begin again. You hear a voice outside, a man's, laughing, low and easy. Then another, younger, answering with the rhythm of someone learning how to speak with weight behind his words. The cooper and his son, likely, working together. Their rhythm different from yours, but no less known. You glance again at the small shelf where the carving rests, bone and thread and barley and lock. None of them belong together by trade, but they sit in harmony like notes in a quiet chord. Each one given, each one returned, each one part of something greater than itself. You rise once more, stretching the stillness from your back. Your body answers slowly, joints creaking like old rafters, but without complaint. You've come to welcome the aches, not as burdens, but as reminders. The body changes. The rhythm deepens. The forge continues. You step outside. The sun greets you full in the face. You lift a hand to your brow, shading your eyes, and look across the village green. A few people pass, carrying baskets, rolling barrels, leading goats. Each of them nods, some with eyes, some with only a glance, and some not at all. But you feel seen just the same. You sit on the bench beside the forge door, hands resting loosely in your lap, and you let the world pass by, not as an outsider, not as a keeper, but as part of it. The breeze picks up, just enough to stir your tunic, to lift the edge of the cloth draped over the lock inside. You think, for a moment, of your father again, and his father, and all those who held the tongs and shaped the blades before the name you carry ever sat on a tongue. The work is yours now, and one day it won't be. But for this moment, in this hour, on this bench, with this sun overhead, it is. And you are not waiting for anything. Because sometimes the gift of the forge is not the fire. It's the quiet that lives around it. The sunlight begins to tilt lower once more, slanting through the forge door at an angle that casts long beams across the floor, lighting up the dust as it floats in golden swirls. You remain seated on the bench outside, your elbows resting on your knees, your eyes following the slow arc of a sparrow that dances above the rooftops. The village hums quietly in the background, not loud, never loud, but present, like a woven thread behind every thought. There is no rush to return inside. The fire does not call. You have already shaped what needed shaping today. Inside, the small shelf holds its quiet treasures. The barley bundle, the bone carving, the thread, the lock wrapped in cloth. Each one waiting to return to the hand that brought it. Or perhaps, to rest there for good. You take the thread again in your palm. Its color, though unchanged, seems deeper in the waning light. You study the twist of it, the way it never frays. A single strand, spun tight, binding nothing, yet holding so much. You think of your own hands, the way they've changed, the way your grip has grown slower, not weaker, just more deliberate. Have you ever noticed how your hands tell a story long before your mouth ever does? From inside the forge, the coals shift. You hear the soft crack of a single ember giving way, not from fire, but from settling. A sigh more than a sound. And then you hear footsteps again, light ones. You look up and see the cooper's boy approaching. Not running this time. Not hesitant either. He walks with something different today. Measured steps. A wrapped bundle in his hands. When he reaches you, he nods. More confident now. He doesn't say much. Just, "My father's plane. The blade needs setting again. You take it." The parcel unwraps easily. The plane is old, but well cared for. You see his father's way of holding it in the smooth polish of the grip. You see the son's learning in the small scratches where he's tried to repair the wedge. It is a simple fix, but not an easy one. You tell him it will be ready tomorrow. He nods again, and then, before turning, he says, "When I'm older, I'd like to learn." He doesn't mean the plane. He means this, the forge, the fire, the silence. You don't answer right away, not with words. Instead, you gesture to the stool just inside the doorway. "Sit for a bit," you say, finally. And he does. And so it begins. Not with a lesson, but with presence. The boy sits on the edge of the stool, his legs swinging slightly, too short to reach the ground. He rests his hands in his lap, fingers curling and uncurling with quiet energy. But he doesn't fidget. He watches. Not the fire, not yet, but you. His eyes track the way you move as you gather the sharpening stones, the cloth, the oil. His head tilts slightly as he observes the way you run a thumb along the plane's edge before even lifting a tool. You don't speak. There's no need. Sometimes, the first lesson is simply being still in the presence of something older than yourself. You sit on the stool beside the workbench, the tool resting between your hands. It is not damaged, only misaligned. The blade has shifted in its housing, perhaps knocked loose by a knot in a stubborn piece of timber. The wedge is too worn to hold it firmly. You feel along the grain of the wood, testing the fit, noting the softness in the corners where the years have smoothed away the strength. You look to the boy. Your father made this, you say. He nods. And you've used it. He nods again, slower. It's learned both of you, you add. He frowns a little, puzzled. You smile. Tools listen, you say. They remember the way your hand moves, the sound of your grip. They wear into your shape. You press the blade gently from its slot and place it aside. Then, with quiet care, you begin to shape a new wedge from the scrap wood pile near the bench. The boy watches the knife work its way through the grain. He leans closer now, his breath shallow, as though afraid to disturb the rhythm. You test the fit, shave a sliver, test again. Then oil the new piece and tap it gently into place with the heel of your palm. The sound is soft but sure, a small click of things coming into alignment. You slide the blade in once more, secure it beneath the wedge, and adjust it with your thumb. The edge gleams faintly in the firelight. You run a small block of oak along its path. A perfect curl peels away. The boy's eyes widen. You hand the plane to him. He holds it carefully, almost reverently, turning it in his hands, testing the weight. You'll need to learn how to listen, you say, not to the tool, but to the space between the blade and the wood. He nods, this time with understanding. He stays a little longer. He asks no questions. But you notice the way he looks around the forge now, not with curiosity, but with the early trace of belonging. His eyes linger on the hammers, the bellows, the tongs. He notices the hooks on the wall, the shelf with its offerings, even the barley. Finally, he stands, holding the plane close to his chest. I'll come again, he says. You say nothing. You only nod. And then he leaves. The door swings gently shut behind him, the sound of his footsteps fading into the dust and light of late afternoon. You sit for a moment longer, staring at the door. The forge is quiet, but no longer only yours. And somehow, that feels right. The days begin to shorten. It happens slowly at first, so softly that you only notice when the evening light no longer reaches the far corner of the forge. The shadows grow longer. The mornings arrive damp with mist, and the fire takes more coaxing to rise. Outside, the trees along the ridge deepen in color, shifting from green to gold, then to a russet that rustles in the wind like old paper. The boy comes more often now, not every day, but enough. He arrives with questions he doesn't speak aloud, and you answer them not with lectures, but with tools. You show him how to hold the hammer, not just with strength, but with patience. You let him carry coal in a bucket, sweep filings into a pan, wipe blades until they catch the light just so. You let him feel the weight of the forge, the quiet of it. Sometimes he just sits and watches, and that too is learning. You don't teach him the way your father taught you, not with barked commands or measured praise, but by showing him how the rhythm of a forge is less about fire and more about time, about staying, about returning. One morning, while you are polishing a horseshoe for the farmer's mare, you notice the boy has carved a small token from scrap wood. It sits on the bench beside the tools, not placed to be seen, but simply left. It is a rough figure, a person holding something round, perhaps a shield or bread. You don't ask. You pick it up, feel the marks in the wood, see where his knife slipped, where he pressed too hard, where he didn't press hard enough. You set it beside the bone carving, the thread, the barley, the lock. The shelf is full now, but it doesn't feel crowded. Each object holds its place. Each carries a season. One evening, long after the sun has dipped beyond the trees and the coals have gone quiet, you sit alone beside the hearth, a small cup of mead resting in your hand. The forge is warm, the door ajar, letting in a breeze that smells of apples and leaves. You do not feel old, but you feel complete. There is nothing you still need to make, nothing you still need to prove. You close your eyes for a moment, and in that stillness, you remember your first day here, long ago, when the forge smelled different, when the tools felt too large, when your hands hadn't yet learned the shape of work, and you smile, because you know, truly know, that this place will remain long after your name is dust. The forge will burn, the bellows will breathe, the iron will sing, and someone else will be listening. Outside, you hear footsteps, two sets, one smaller than the other, not hurried, just arriving. You rise slow and sure and step into the twilight, not to leave, but to welcome. Lovely. Then close your eyes again if you haven't already, and let the old forge fade into a warm and distant glow behind you, like a memory tucked safely beneath soft blankets. The sound of hammers and hearths grows quieter now, and in its place comes something gentler, a soft breeze, a whisper of wool, the hush of sea mist brushing old stone walls. Let yourself drift toward it, calmly, slowly. We are no longer in the deep woods of the north, not in the forge, not among the trees, not beside the river's bend. It is the year 932, and the wind carries salt. You walk now along the edge of the sea, not hurried, not lost, just walking. The sand is cold beneath your bare feet, smooth in places, pebbled in others, and the tide stretches far and low. The water glistens silver under a sky wrapped in cloud. Somewhere far off, gulls cry, their wings catching the wind like cloth torn from the sky itself. There is a cottage ahead, stone-built, low and weathered, with a thatched roof weighed down by sea-damp moss. Its shutters are crooked, its chimney thin. Smoke curls from it in a quiet thread, straight into the morning stillness. It does not rush. Nothing here does. You step toward it, your woolen cloak brushing your calves, your hands empty. But your thoughts are full. Of linen stretched tight, of sheep in the hills, of herbs bundled and drying near the hearth. You are not a traveler here. You live in this place. You wake before dawn, tie your hair with seagrass twine, and brew tea made from leaves you gathered under the last full moon. You are a weaver on the coast of the North Sea, and the sea is always near. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to measure time not by clocks, but by the turn of tides, not by bells or brass, but by how far the water reaches your doorstep? The door of the cottage creaks as you push it open. Inside, it is dim and warm. The air smells of salt, of wool, and of elderflower. Your loom rests near the window, facing the gray light, half-woven cloth draped across it like a river made from thread. There are baskets beneath the bench, filled with dyed yarns and muted colors. Sea foam, ash blue, moss green, sun-worn red. The fire in the hearth crackles, low and steady. You kneel before it, adding a small log with careful hands. It catches quickly, as if eager to help you begin the day. The warmth presses into your skin, easing the cold from your fingers, your knees, your thoughts. You sit back on your heels and listen. To the wind in the chimney, to the sea outside, to the silence within. And somewhere, in that silence, a rhythm begins to hum, not spoken, not heard, only felt.